We're going to begin on the front page of the booklet. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. I will build this world from love, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. And you must build this world from love, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, dai, 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 then God will build this world from love, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Shabbat shalom. A world built from love. Can you think of anything else that we might need more at a time like this? Last Shabbat began for us with our service honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. We shared together many of his calls for peace, for brotherhood, for treating each other with love and justice, for the unity of humanity, regardless of skin color or other distinctions. The Torah portion we read told the story of the liberation of the Israelites from being held as slaves in Egypt, highlighted by their dramatic, miraculous deliverance through the Sea of Reeds, moving forward into freedom. Together, we envisioned our world making progress toward universal respect for each other. And we ended our service by singing, "We Shall Overcome," including the verse that always strikes me as most poignant, "We are not afraid." But the Torah portion doesn't end with the Israelites singing and dancing on the far side of the sea. Soon after they commenced their journey through the wilderness toward the promised land, they were attacked by Amalek, a nomadic warrior tribe. During the fierce battle that ensued, the Torah tells us, Moses positioned himself on a hilltop, and whenever he held his hands up, Israel gained the advantage. But whenever his hands got heavy and he lowered them, Amalek gained the advantage. Ultimately, Israel was victorious, but this attack was so traumatic that the Torah says that God will be at war with Amalek throughout the ages. And it is memorialized later in the Torah when Moses reminds the Israelites that Amalek attacked in the rear of the camp, where the weak and the weary, the stragglers and the sick travel. And therefore, because of this cowardly, cruel attack, when the Israelites are finally safe in their land, they must remember to blot out the memory of Amalek. We always have to fight against Amalek. That Torah portion was read at services last Shabbat morning. And as we all know, at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas, a man whose name I will not mention besides his first name, Malik, came to the temple before services, sat in the sanctuary with the rabbi and 3 other worshipers, and then pulled out a gun and took them all hostage. Not Amalek, but a Malik perpetrated this attack on a peaceful, prayerful congregation, desecrating their sacred space and their sacred time. He held them for 11 dreadful hours before, thanks to the cool head and quick actions of the rabbi, they saw an opportunity to escape and they took it. And we need to be precise here. They were not released. They miraculously escaped. In the same way that the Israelites were not released from Egyptian bondage, but rather they miraculously escaped. Just as we learn that the splitting of the sea only occurred once an Israelite named Nachshon walked into the waters which remained unparted until they reached his neck, risking everything for his and his people's freedom. So did this miracle only occur once a rabbi named Charlie Citron Walker risked everything for his and his people's freedom. The Talmud teaches that Rabbi Yanai said, "A person should never stand in a place of danger and say, 'A miracle will be performed for me, and I will escape unharmed,' lest a miracle is not performed for him." He teaches that we cannot wait for miracles, relying on a miracle to save us. We have to make miracles happen. We are so relieved and so grateful that Rabbi Citron Walker and his congregants made their miracle and escaped physically unharmed. We must always fight against Amalek. But despite the words of the song, we are not so sure that we will overcome, because we are afraid, and we are discouraged, and we are anxious. How can it be that in the year 2022, Amalek is still attacking us? Jewish commentators understand Amalek not just as an actual tribe, but as a metaphor. As a statement from the Massachusetts Board of Rabbis put it last Sunday, drawing on the Torah's description of Amalek attacking in the rear of the camp, quote, "Amalek is the embodiment of the cruelty and immorality of those who attack the weak and helpless. Amalek is emblematic of the idea of the use of violent power against the innocent. We are all called upon to remember that such evil exists in the world and to do our part to eradicate it. So in this instance, in this incident, what does Amalek represent? I find my answer in a slightly different question. If a person wanted to secure the release of a convicted terrorist, what would motivate that person to travel from England to suburban Dallas, to a temple comparable in size to Temple Chayei Shalom, and demand, among other things, to speak to the rabbi of a very large congregation in New York City? What would possibly make that person think that that level of threat would convince the United States justice system to free the prisoner? There is only one word for the perception that Jews have that much influence, power, and control: anti-Semitism. But it's a little more subtle than the anti-Semitism that we usually see. Unlike other recent attacks on synagogues in Pittsburgh and Poway, fortunately, miraculously, This person apparently was not motivated by a murderous hatred of Jews, by which I mean that unlike those other shooters, his goal was not to kill Jews. Rather, his goal was to leverage Jewish power to achieve his mission. Instead of just hating Jews, he must have believed that Jews control this country's politics, this country's media, this country's law enforcement. After all, he did not choose to occupy a church or a grocery store or a school or any of millions of other random civilian targets that could have provided him with many more potential hostages than a small synagogue on Shabbat morning in the middle of COVID. He must have believed that threatening Jews, even in a tiny temple, would motivate the all-powerful Jews to accede to his demands. That is anti-Semitism, pure and simple. We must always fight against Amalek. Last Shabbat, Amalek took the form of anti-Semitism. So we must label it, calling it out whenever we see it, from wherever we see it, from the right or from the left, from white supremacists or from people of color, from people who focus unjustifiably on Israel, or from people who focus unjustifiably on the United States. We must teach about it, educating our children, our communities, and our country not to traffic in stereotypes and prejudice, but to respect and value each person for who they are. And we must develop relationships, building coalitions with other people of goodwill, to stand together against the evil that would divide us by religion or race, by ideology or by identity. We must always fight against Amalek. Rabbi Lawrence Groffman points out that the struggle against Amalek in the Torah portion took place in two arenas: the physical arena, with the actual conflict between the armies, and the spiritual arena, drawing on commentaries that teach that Moses' upraised hands directed the Israelites to point their thoughts toward God. And when they focused on God, they were victorious. In the same way, we too must fight in both arenas. In terms of our physical security, I recognize that some of you may have been nervous about coming to the temple tonight, perhaps fearing for our safety in the TCS building. So without going into too much detail, which security experts recommend, let me say that in recent years we have taken several steps to upgrade our security. As on an airplane, we should always know where the emergency exits are. Besides the main door, we have doors on each side of the building at the end of the hallway, and an additional exit here in the sanctuary. We have a close relationship with our local police department, who have been very attentive to and protective of us. And our lay leaders and our professional staff have had trainings through CJP and the ADL, along with our local law enforcement, about what to do, God forbid, in case of an attack. Beyond our physical security, like Moses and the Israelites, we also must fight Amalek with our spiritual strength, our connection and commitment to our Judaism and our fellow Jews. It is that connection that explains why we in Massachusetts feel so affected by an incident in Texas. And not only us, but Jews around the country and around the world, and not only other Reform Jews, but Jews of all denominations. It is because we know the truth of the Talmudic teaching, Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Bazeh. All Jews are bound up with each other, connected to each other, responsible for each other. Saturday, we were not just watching on television. In a deep and real way, we were there too. We felt attacked. too. Dr. King taught in his letter from the Birmingham jail, quote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." He meant that about humanity writ large, but it is felt particularly profoundly by Jews. And this, too, we learn from the Torah portion. Before Amalek attacks, the Israelites are complaining for a change, arguing with Moses over the lack of water in the wilderness. The Torah refers to them as Bnei Yisrael, in the plural, the children of Israel, the Israelites, in the plural, indicating that they are multiple, divided, disconnected from each other. But once Amalek attacks, the Torah refers to them simply as Yisrael, Israel, in the singular collective, indicating that they are united, connected, together. And it is this unity that enables them to prevail. We Jews are famously fractious, fighting among ourselves. But when we are endangered, we must unite, joining together as one, because we are all connected. After Israel defeated Amalek, they continued their journey through the wilderness. How do we move forward from here? As we move from last week's portion to this week's, the Israelites arrive at Mount Sinai, where they will enter into covenant with God and hear God give them the mitzvot, the commandments that make up the fabric of Judaism. And so it is for us. To move forward from anti-Semitism, we must renew our focus on Jewish life, on study and prayer and social justice and community and culture. This past Yom Kippur, I spoke about anti-Semitism, and I quoted Rabbi Jeff Salkin, who used the term pro-Semitism. In other words, I said, the best response to people who hate Jews is to love being Jewish. The best response to anti-Semitism is to live a full, rich, meaningful Jewish life. If Judaism is important to us, we have to live like it matters. This Shabbat, as we stand again at Mount Sinai, let us renew our commitment to our covenant and to our people. Let us rededicate ourselves to filling our lives with Jewish values, Jewish actions, and Jewish meaning. And let us remain vigilant against Amalek, continuing our fight against his cruel violence, thereby striving to build a world of justice, compassion, and peace for us and for all people. Amen. Among the commandments that God gives to the Israelites at Mount Sinai is the fourth commandment, which teaches us to remember Shabbat, even in the midst of everything else, whatever else may be happening. We need to remember and celebrate Shabbat. And so we do. So we will continue tonight with the lighting of the Shabbat candles on page 301 of the Siddur. Carol, if you would lead us, please.
Another week of work is ended. Again, Shabbat brings welcome peace. We pause from our labors to let Shabbat give another dimension to our lives. These Shabbat candles are symbols of the holiness we seek. Their brightness dispels gloom and lights a path to faith and hope. Their glow reminds us of the sacred bonds that link us to our people over space and time. Their radiance summons us to fulfill our people's mission to cast the light of freedom, justice, and peace upon all the world.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We turn now to page 13. Jewish tradition teaches that we are each accompanied by angels who greet us on Shabbat, and they bless us, we hope, with peace. Shalom Aleichem asks them to give us that blessing. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the booklets, reading number 1, a prayer by Rabbi Mark Katz. As in so many times throughout history, our Jewish community is surrounded by uncertainty, unsure of what danger, what vitriol, what violence might await us in this era of rising anti-Semitism. We call upon you, God, to be our partner. When we face enmity, fill our hearts and those of our detractors with love. When we meet bigotry, puncture the ignorance surrounding us with truth. When we see only short-sightedness, open the eyes of the blind. When fear overcomes us, show us the light of courage. When we feel alone, find us hands to soothe us. When we seek to turn inward, find us partners with whom to stand in solidarity. We stand in the footsteps of our ancestor Bruriah, praying not that the wicked will disappear, but rather that their wickedness will. Let those inclined to hate question their intolerance, break their fanaticism, and burst open their narrow-mindedness. Guide our leaders to speak out, our law enforcement to stand firm, our judges to rule justly. Let all those who profess faith walk with us along this unsteady and rocky path, and let us, in turn, walk with them along theirs. We are a people blessed with perseverance, boldness, and fortitude. Help us to tap into these virtues. All darkness will disappear when we join our light with the lights of others. May this happen speedily in our day, so that we, along with all humanity, find our place, each under our vine and fig tree, and none of us shall be afraid. Continuing in the booklet, those last lines, that quote from the prophet Micah, that each of us shall sit under our vine and fig tree, and none of us shall be afraid, were set to music by Cantor Jeff Klepper and Rabbi Dan Freelander, along with the famous verse from the prophet Isaiah, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, they shall never again learn war." This song may be unfamiliar. If it is familiar, please sing. V'yashvu ish tachat gafno, v'tachat te'enato. V'yashvu ish tachat gafno, v'tachat te'enato. Ave en machri. Ave en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'yashvu ish tachat gafno, v'tachat te'enato. Ve'yashvu ish tachat gafno, v'tachat te'enato. Ave en machri. Ave en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Ve'en machri. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Ave en machri. Ave en machri. Ave en machri. We are ready now to welcome in the Shabbat bride, page 21, Lecha Dodi, come my beloved, to greet the bride. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad, Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi makor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, shedaberi, kavod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, Toch emune am segula. Boi chala, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Page 27, Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, V'alma divrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Bagala, uv'izman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal, Shemei Dekudesha Barichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru, amen. Page 28, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Can be seated. We continue back in the booklet with reading number 2 from Rabbi Stephanie Crawley. We are the people of the book. Don't read it all in one sitting. Some of its chapters will break your heart. We will use it to teach you how to live, to break your heart on purpose. We are the people of the tree. Don't cut us down. Don't you know what wisdom we contain? We will teach you how to reach towards the light. We are the people of the garden. Doesn't matter how far you take us from our home, you will find us flourishing. We will teach you how to grow in all conditions. We are the people of the air. Don't tear us apart. You will breathe our shared breath. We will teach you how to fill it up with song. We are the people of the heart. Doesn't matter how hard yours is. Our muscle softens as it opens. We will teach you how to make joy where there is only pain. We are the people of each other. We are the people of the choosing to be who we are over and over again, even when it hurts us, even when it breaks us. We will be who we are over and over again. Back in the Siddur on page 29, we give thanks for the gift of Torah, the gift of God's love. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha havta, Amcha havta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadata. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu v'shochbenu uvkumenu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu uvahem negeh yomam v'layla negeh yomam v'layla ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch ata Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 30. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. Page 31 in the 6th line from the top. Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Amen. We continue back in the booklets with reading number 3 from Sarah Stockmail, who lives in Pittsburgh, and she wrote this poem in sympathy, empathy with Colleyville having lived through the attack at Tree of Life. She connected them in this way. She wrote this poem on Monday, which was Tu B'Shvat, the festival, the New Year of the trees. This is an excerpt from her poem. Throughout the ages, there have been many who have risen up with these same evil intentions, but never once were our people beaten back, retreating into dark corners, making ourselves small. We have had and will continue to have the audacity to remain alive. This past Shabbat, we sang the Song of the Sea, the one that carried our people across the shores from slavery to freedom. We did not know then what dangers could occur in the crevice of land amidst the waves, nor what lay on the other side, but we had already traversed the barren desert and knew narrow space before. So we had the imagination to envision that new worlds were possible. On this Tu B'Shvat, as the almond trees are just beginning to flower in the ancient cities of our ancestors, we open our hearts to a community that most of us had only just learned the name of this past Shabbat. We continue with them to bloom and flourish, even in the harshest of conditions, and in places where nothing grows. For millennia, our roots have pushed their way up through the cracks time and time again. Dreaming is in our bones. From Pittsburgh to Poway, to Berlin, to Colleyville, and all of the places and times in between 2018 and now, we are links in a chain that no one wanted to connect, of unimaginable lived experience and generational trauma. Where once we had grand illusions of safety, we have come to discover that we are inextricably woven into our collective history, come to repeat itself in unwelcome ways. We have the reluctant opportunity to remind ourselves that survival is our destiny. We sing anew Mi Chamocha in your names today, for you have crossed the sea and come to the other side, bearing the scars of your journey. Today we plant new trees that will grow in spite of all we have witnessed. Our children will be the flowers we produce, and they will have the gift of eternal song in wide open fields of freedom. And so we continue with a new Mi Chamocha that is not the usual text of Mi Chamocha that we sing, but a different line, a different verse from the Song of the Sea, from Exodus chapter 15, verse 2. It's the next verse in the booklets. God is my strength and my song, and God has been my salvation. An appropriate verse this week. Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua. 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 Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li. Lishua. Our evening services include a prayer called Hashkivenu, in which we ask God to shelter us at night in peace and to restore us to life again in the morning. We think particularly this week of the blessing of the prayer of the hope to be sheltered in peace. On page 33 of the Siddur, Hashkivenu. Excuse me. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ushmor tzetenu uvoenu lechaim u'shalom me'ata v'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. We turn now to page 35b for the Amidah. As usual, we will sing together the first three parts of the Amidah, which are all found on page 35b, before continuing individually from there through page 38, if you wish to follow the liturgy of the Siddur, or with our own prayers from our own hearts and our own souls. But I want to draw particular attention this evening to a verse, a little phrase from the second section of the Amidah. It is about halfway down the page, a little more than halfway down the page of page 35b, in the second line of the paragraph that is 4 lines of Hebrew. The second line, 4 words in of that line, praises God. This is in the series of praises of God for God's power. The particular example that the 4th and 5th words of that second line give is Matir Asurim, God who frees the captives. Particularly poignant this evening. Page 35b, please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Koneh HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot, u'mevi Goel livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'foked u'moshia u'magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufoked Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye metim atah Rav le'hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye metim berachamim rak. Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim. Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech memit, umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lachayot metim. Baruch ata Adonai mechaye hametim. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehallelucha selah. Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 As we prepare for Mishaberach, our prayer for healing, we come back to the booklet for reading number 4, a reflection written by Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker. We are not helpless. We bring healing with Band-Aids and hugs, a cup of coffee and chicken soup. We are not helpless. We bring healing with a text, a call, a card, a response that says, "You are not alone." We are not helpless. We bring healing with acceptance, patience, and understanding for ourselves and for others. We are not helpless. We bring healing with words of compassion and acts of compassion, reaching out with care and love. We are not helpless. We bring healing to heart and mind, body and soul. We bring healing every day. We are not helpless. As we prepare for Mishaberach, which is on the next page of the booklet, or on the inside back cover of the Siddur, we hold in our hearts our friends and loved ones who are struggling with illness, whether physically or spiritually or emotionally. Tonight, our congregational family thinks particularly of Judy Alpert, Phyllis Burke, Teresa Budd, Arthur Campbell, Tony Casella, Mike Cohen, Carol Dolan, Valerie Frank, Jonathan Gardner, David Glazer, Marilyn Hoffman, Rose Jones, Nathan Kaufer, Melvin Lipman, Nancy Mayer, Janice Mussman Albertini, Albert Schechterman, Michael Schreiber, Iris Sherman, Judy Shapiro, Steve Walensky, Devora bat Yaakov Vishirli, Yonina bat David HaKohen V'Sara, Sandy Hoffman. If there is someone for whom you are particularly concerned this evening, someone who is on your hearts and minds tonight, we invite you to say that person's name aloud now. We also particularly hold in our hearts all of the members of Congregation Beth Israel of Colleyville, Texas, and all of their family and friends as well. As we continue with our prayer for healing, Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. On this past November 2nd, 2021, Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker was invited to give the invocation at Tarrant County Commissioner's Court. The words that he said at that time are on our booklet as reading number 5. Usually at this time in our service we offer a prayer for our country. His words fit that goal well, I think. So reading number 5 in the booklets. According to our rabbis, the second temple that stood in Jerusalem was destroyed due to sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Living in our society today, bearing witness to all we're going through, I've come to understand just how destructive baseless hatred can be. And yet I come here this morning with a word of hope, because I know that every religious tradition has some version of the values of love your neighbor as yourself and don't hate another in your heart. Fear can be calmed. Trust that has been eroded can be restored. Bridges can be built across divides, no matter how wide they may seem. We can be a community, and such work needs to take place here in this room. So on this day and every day, I pray that this court be granted the empathy to love your neighbors and citizens and all who come before you as yourselves. May this court look past all of the posturing and be granted the understanding and wisdom to lead us with justice and compassion. With your words and deeds, reduce hatred and fear and bring faith and confidence in our democracy and peace within our county. We thank you for this court and for its vital work. Help them live up to their highest ideals as they work for the benefit of all people under their care. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be your will. We turn to page 51 in the Siddur, and we rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, latet gdula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. May be seated. As we prepare for Kaddish, we recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight in our congregational family, we especially remember Daniel Budd, the uncle of Rhonda Fleming, Stephen Skolnick, uncle of Alicia Dancy, and Hilda Miriam Ring, mother of Bruce Ring, for whom we are still in Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning. And our congregational family remembers with special affection our loved ones whose Yahrzeit will occur this coming week. Rose Kaufman, grandmother of Paul Kaufman, Bruce Flashenberg, brother of David Flashenberg, Howard Jelinek, grandfather of David Jelinek, Pearl Levine, mother of Lenny Levine, Joe Pasternak, grandfather of David Jelinek, Ida Clayman, mother of Maxine Bloom, Frederick Gottlieb, father of Jen Faber, Arthur Katzen, father of Nate Katzen, Beverly Handel, aunt of Ruth Albert, Irving Meltzer, father of Barry Meltzer. If you are remembering someone this evening, I invite you to say that person's name aloud now. Zichronam livracha. May the memories of all our dear ones be a blessing. If you're saying Kaddish in someone's memory tonight, we ask you to rise now. In loving support of the mourners, we rise as a congregation. In gratitude to God for the gift of the lives of their loved ones, those who are in mourning and those remembering someone, say Kaddish on page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv imru amen, yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal, shmei d'kudsha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort all of the bereaved. And we say, Amen. You may be seated. I am not sure which of our board members tonight is doing the announcements, so I'm not sure who to call on. But I trust that someone will start to make their way towards the bima. Thank you, Alicia.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Let's see. Torah study tomorrow with Rabbi Carr at 9 a.m. Saturday's Havdalah service will be at 6 p.m. Please save the date, Saturday, February 5th, 7:30 p.m., Brotherhood virtual trivia. This event is open to temple members and non-temple members. You can email tcseastonbrotherhood@gmail.com. And if you do not have people to play with, no worries, they will put you on a team. Brotherhood has been able to donate a significant amount of money to the temple during this critical time. This typically is their biggest fundraising event. And so they're hoping for more teams and more money raised as the Brotherhood will continue to donate to the General Temple Fund to assist with those in need within our community. And then we also have a sisterhood event rescheduled for Sunday, February 6th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Zoom. Please RSVP by February 4th. Give yourself some love and the gift of self-care this Valentine's Day. All TCS members are invited. Learn how to create your to-be list with certified life coach Sarah Smeaton. Backed by popular demand, she will help us put aside the to-do lists and focus on who we want to be first. Through surprising and playful exercises, she will help participants see which qualities they value and want to embody. And just a reminder, the information and links to all the activities are included in your weekly emails on Monday, as well as any special notices. Thank you.
chesed yibaneh. Yadadai. Olam chesed yibaneh. Yadadai. Olam chesed yibaneh. Yadadai. Olam chesed yibaneh. Yadadai. I will build this world from love. And you must build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. Olam chesed yibaneh. Olam chesed yibaneh. Olam chesed yibaneh. Olam chesed yibaneh. We conclude with Shabbat Evening Kiddush on page 49. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho, b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lemaaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thank you to those of us who joined us on YouTube as well. You can now come back to the Zoom link. It should still be open, I hope, and we'll be able to schmooze in the foyer and on Zoom. Shabbat shalom.